Adam Holmgren is the co-founder and CEO of Fibbler, an attribution platform helping B2B marketers connect LinkedIn ads to pipeline and revenue. Since launching Fibbler in 2024, Adam has grown the business to nearly 1 million in ARR, fully bootstrapped with no sales team, using LinkedIn ads as one of his primary growth engines. Along the way, he's developed a really awesome POV that I think challenges how a lot of us think about paid advertising. LinkedIn isn't just a lead generation channel, it's a demand generation channel if we did the right things with it. Cold campaigns build familiarity with 95% of your buyers who aren't ready to buy today, and retargeting captures just 5% who are. And success isn't measured by form fills alone, it's measured by influence on pipeline and revenue. And that's exactly what today's session is about. By the end of this episode, you'll leave with a campaign structure that you can adapt to your own company, along with, practical frameworks for proving the value of LinkedIn ads. So if you ever wondered why your LinkedIn ads are getting so expensive, or how do you improve the impact on its pipeline, or how should you balance demand generation with demand capture, this session is for you. So feel free to open up a new tab with a docs.new, or grab a notebook. Of course, we're going to be recording this whole conversation as well. So if you would like to sit back and just enjoy what Adam is going to be bringing to you. Adam, welcome to Coach by Triple Dart. We're super pumped to have you on.
Yeah, good to be here. Let me share my screen and we can kind of kick this off.
Sounds
Uh,
good.
I think you need to stop sharing yours first. Yeah, exactly. There we go. Share. There we have it. So yeah, excited to be here. This presentation is going to start pretty high level and my kind of thoughts into advertising, but then it will get very nitty gritty. So feel free to ask questions that we can kind of take in the end if you don't, if there's something that you don't understand or something that feels off, essentially. So before we go into kind of the subject to actually talk about today, I kind of wanted to bring a little bit of a backstory around myself. So I've been in the B2B marketing space for about 10 years or so. Specifically, I would say in the startup kind of scale up and environment. And at least for the past 5 years, it's been very deep inside LinkedIn ads as a platform. Um, and partly LinkedIn is a very brand awareness focused platform, right? Like as all social channels are. So in 2023, I was spending heavily, but had a hard time to kind of prove my case to my CEO and CMO at the time. So I kind of started to manually kind of stitch together things and work with attribution in my own way. And that was kind of when I then founded Fibbler. And I did it first on the kind of side of my full-time job, and then now it's my full-time job. So it's a really cool journey. And we've done it now primarily, it's a self-serve product, and our primary channel has been LinkedIn ads and my organic content from the start. And that's what we're kind of here to talk about, because everyone sees LinkedIn as this kind of expensive channel, right? But to me, it is very dependent on how you use it. And that's what I want to get at today. So as Glenn kind of touched upon, 95% of the market, we see this stat all the time, right? On LinkedIn, 95% of the market isn't buying today. But everyone is kind of focusing their advertising on the 5% that are, which is both extremely competitive, but also almost impossible to identify who those 5% are. Um, so it's a much, much more kind of good play to focus on these 95% and be the name and kind of the brand that pops up in their mind when they enter the kind of buying cycle. Because what I've realized after launching Fibbler as well as kind of a new product a few years ago is that it's so easy to create a product today. Like most products can be replaced in a few weeks. That is not how you win. I think you have to, build attention, build a brand, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. Um, And like I mean, most of us aren't OpenAI, most of us aren't Anthropic. The product or features is it's generally not the moat anymore. It probably could be before, when it wasn't so easy to develop, but today it's not. Like today we need to build something people want to follow. We need to build like a narrative, a vision people actually are excited about, and that's the difficult part. Take these logos to the right. You can see a small portion of them, and you instantly know who they are. Which is something I think is very unheard of in the B2B space, and but we're slowly getting there. So what I believe so strongly in is that we need to win on kind of mental availability and being the one people remember. We can't convert these 95%. We have to play the long game. We have to be patient and we have to be or become the name that they think of immediately when they have these issues that they're trying to solve, right? So but that is very difficult. This is probably the most difficult part of marketing, right? How can we win on mental availability? So what we did is that I realized pretty early on in building Fibbler that we need a hook to memory. We need something they can remember us by. And what we did was that we built this mascot. We call the mascot Fibs. It's a pink lion. It's pink partly because pink stands out a lot, right? And it's a lion because I love animals and it just happened to be that. So we have implemented this mascot into almost everything that we do. You will see it later on in this presentation and kind of the results from doing that. But it has been a massive advantage for us. It's so many people that come into us that, they don't know me, they don't know Fibbler, but they have seen this pink lion before. So I think it's so underutilized in finding some sort of distinctive brand asset. It doesn't have to be a mascot, it can be anything. It can be colors, it can be how you write, it can be anything that really distinguishes you from the rest. Try to not be a blue SaaS brand, right? Try to find something distinctive that people can remember. So that's kind of my high level thoughts on advertising. We want to be the brand that people remember when they get ready to buy. We don't want to push them into a made up funnel. That's not how you win on LinkedIn ads. So in essence, what we did to grow from zero to, I think we're at 1.2 million today in ARR, and we're two people still, is in the beginning, we had to lead with people. I had an audience on LinkedIn already. We wanted to utilize that. After a while, we had to start growing the company brand because that's what people can remember long term. And then we have to distribute it like crazy. We obviously sold a product to marketeers, and marketeers are very active on LinkedIn, which is why LinkedIn ads is a great distribution channel for us. And then we obviously at the end have to kind of prove how it works. So this is what I want to dig into today. And this will be a very, very nitty-gritty playbook. You can give me questions in the end, take pictures or whatever you want to. This is my view of how I think most companies should run LinkedIn ads. I'm using about 10K, maybe a bit more today even, for this kind of structure. But when we started, I was spending maybe 1K in the beginning. So there's really no minimum spend to LinkedIn ads, in my opinion. You can get started right away. We did it like the second month of existence. We started spending on paid ads because I believe so strongly in, standing out, distributing well, and being like getting reach to your buyers. I think you need to do that earlier than you think. So let's get into the nitty gritty. This might be a terrifying slide, so I'm gonna run through this slide very slowly because it's kind of the entire framework of what I actually run. And if we start from the top, we have something we call a co-layer, we have something we call a retargeting layer. The co-layer is all of our campaigns that we're running on LinkedIn that's targeting a completely new audience. So most likely people that haven't heard about us before. And then retargeting layer is people who have in some shape or form engaged with us, or did they know about it at this point. And the most common sources that we use are like they have visited the website, they have visited our company page on LinkedIn, they have engaged with another ad in the co-layer, or they have watched a video from the co-layer. So those are kind of the four primary sources that we use. And I split our budget 70% into the co-layer, approximately 30% into to the retargeting layer approximately. So my whole philosophy of running ads on LinkedIn is to have this initial code layer, funnel people into another retargeting layer where we can increase the frequency. And with frequency, I mean how many times in this scenario, how many times they see an ad from us every 30 days. So in the code layer towards new people, I only want it to be around 1 to 2. So they don't see us that much there because we don't want to pay for it. We instead want to reach new people here. We funnel them to retargeting, and here I want to increase frequency a lot. Here I want to, people that have actually done something could indicate that they are more likely to be ready to buy at some point, right? So here I want to increase the frequency, and for us, that's probably 4 to 10 times in a 30-day period that we're showing up to them. And then audience penetration is simply the audience we are targeting, how many of those are we reaching in also like a 30-day period. So for cold layer, we don't really care, or I don't really care about reaching all of them. But then for the retargeting layer, I ideally want to reach 100% of them, but that can be difficult for many reasons, but pushing that as much as possible. So cold layer essentially to reach new people and reach as many people as possible, getting into the retargeting layer. And here is really the meat of it and where we kind of increase frequency. And I run a lot of different formats, obviously, and this has changed over time. In the beginning, I was very focused, and we're going to talk about how to run great ads as well today. But I'm running in cold 4 different formats. We have text ads, we have thought leader ads, image ads, and another thought leader ad. So text ads, that's the same for cold and retargeting. It's a small little advertising that sits on the right side of LinkedIn, and you can basically run them for free. So that's the only reason why I run them. They are essentially free, and it's just your logo and a small text that shows up on the right side. So it's basically free visibility. So I encourage everyone to run them because it would be foolish not to. And then what I'm betting a lot on is thought leader ads. And the thought leader ads, I'm going to show later on what it is and how to do it and so on. But we have 2 different ones. It's essentially my posts that we then sponsor up to people outside of my network. So both when images is attached and both when video is attached. That's the 2 different ones here. For images, I think we have a CTR is typically the proxy that I look at because I want my ads to engage as much as possible with my audience because that's the biggest correlation I see with them then ending up in the pipeline later on. So as you can see here, for thought leader ads, I want it to be somewhere between 10 to 50% in the cold layer. And that's quite high compared to some personas, I would say, but I'm targeting marketeers, and marketeers are generally pretty friendly and high-fivey. So 10 to 15% is usually what I'm able to see with my thought leader ads. With video, I want around 5% plus of people completing the video, and this is quite long videos of like 1 minute. So I would say that's also fairly good if we can reach that. And then for regular image ads, that's your classical company page ads with just an image from a company. That's more around 1% is really good if you can have a CTR around that. So you can see the difference, right, in CTR between thought leader ads and regular image ads. And that's why I believe thought leader ads are so powerful. And when we then come to the retargeting layer, it's very similar in terms of formats, but the content changes slightly. So thought leader ads go from being fairly high level, focusing on, talking about subjects related to Fibbler and my product. And then in the retargeting layer, it will focus more on the actual product and the problems we solve. But I add a few different formats in retargeting. CTV is one, which is essentially that you from LinkedIn ads can get your ads up on different streaming services and so on. I'm doing it specifically in the US, so you can get up onto Hulu and HBO Max and so on, and that is something I also believe strongly in being showing up in different places. And then message ads, which is essentially getting your face that they have already seen in these thought leader ads into their inbox and actually pitch the product. So this is my kind of overall framework. I I encourage anyone to run something similar. I don't think you need to make it more complex. You could even make it less complex and only run, text ads, thought leader ads, and image ads. That was how I started with kind of the budget up until now. And then I've added CTV, message ads, and so on at a later date. Targeting and bidding, always a hot topic as well. I believe also strongly here in keeping it simple. If you have a pretty large audience you can sell to, I think LinkedIn's own native targeting is fine. I use industry, company sizes, and title targeting. I just make sure that we skip, LinkedIn have something called super titles, which head of marketing is a super title as an example. It will pull in hundreds of thousands of different titles into that one and trying to avoid those clear super titles. So I'm trying to be a bit more niche with titles. But if you have a more narrow audience you want to sell to, they need to have a specific ERP or CRM or whatever, then I would recommend having some sort of third-party audience list, uploading it as a matched audience to LinkedIn. But otherwise, I think LinkedIn's native targeting works fine. Bidding, I also recommend always running what we call manual bidding. It's always set on automatic as the start. But you can almost always get the same results for a lower cost by actually putting manual bid and setting it. You get like a recommended bid from LinkedIn and like taking about 2/3 of that, and it will be completely fine. So that is something like short I recommend you to do. And when we talk about thought leader ads, because these I think still are the most underutilized format on LinkedIn and the most powerful. So it's essentially taking someone's post and sponsoring them organically on LinkedIn. And it could be like your own post, your executives, your someone at the company. It could be a customer. Like you can sponsor any post kind of. And it doesn't feel like an ad because it just says promoted by very small at the top. So it feels like an organic post, but it's sponsored. And this is literally the only thing we did in the beginning was taking my organic post, sponsoring them up to people outside of my network. And then now after a while, we've of course added more things. So I think when you post things organically or someone at your company, it needs to work organically first, and then you can decide to pay for it, right? Because it becomes an expensive lesson if you have to learn through paying for it. So for me and with my audience, if my posts get 100+ likes organically, I know that they will most likely kill it also in paid. And I, of course, also have an audience that is very similar to the one I sell to in paid. So, that also needs to be there. But I think it's a good thing to test in organic and then kind of distribute the ones that are working great in paid. And most importantly, for all of these organic posts that I'm sponsoring, you need to add a sort of a CTA you can add it anywhere in the post, but I recommend doing it similar to what you can see in the picture here at the end, where you actually put a link to your site and that's, so they actually have a pitch about your product in the end, even if the post doesn't necessarily talk about it, and then a link they can click on, because that is trackable later on. You can track these landing page clicks, which is great. Our best performing thought leader ads right now in the co-layer, I typically always talk about I don't talk about the product directly, but more things adjacent to the product. And for me, that's LinkedIn ads, right? So my best performing thought leader ads post right now is when I'm talking about how much we've spent on LinkedIn ads and kind of the structure, similar to what I'm doing today, right? But in a more condensed format. And then in retargeting, I focus more on how we actually solve the problem. So there I'm talking more about attribution and how we deal with attribution issues. And that's kind of my best. And you can see there as well that I'm implementing also in these kind of things, the mascot, the distinctive brand asset for people to remember us. And that is the hack I also want to mention here, because I think the dangerous thing about relying on thought leader ads is that people will know you, but they will not know the company brand. And that is the issue I kind of saw in the beginning when I didn't do it. People came into Fibbler, they knew my name, but they didn't know Fibbler. So I think it's a great way to have some sort of distinctive brand asset and add it into your thought leader ads. So basically in your organic post, you add in this asset, and then it's added into your paid thought leader ads as well. So I think it's amazing when you can do organic content and make it memorable with the brand, etc. as well. Just a small hack I wanted to mention. And when it comes to image ads, and now I'm talking about these regular company, this is a regular ad. This is what feels like an ad. So how can we make them not feel as boring and unengaging as ads typically do? What I've found almost works in any type of industry is utilizing some sort of meme structure or theme. So taking memes that people already know, everyone has some form of, everyone looks at memes in their private time. But if you can take those memes and turn it into something real in a B2B situation that they can understand, you can see this one to the right, where I'm trying to turn it into a battle against last touch attribution and being a bit funny with that, then people will remember you. It's such a good memory kind of activation. And again, here's pretty different for me because I use the same creatives in both the cold and the retargeting layer when it's come to image ads, because I believe so strongly in repetition, and they need to see this damn pink lion a million times until they actually remember it. And then obviously make people feel something. Humor is typically what I go for because it's people will remember something funny. And I'm also like a marketeer selling to marketeers, so it's a bit easier for me to understand, or at least if I feel like something is funny, hopefully other marketeers will feel the same way. Um, and for us, these are our best performing image ads right now. And kind of the theme that we're going with currently is this CEO versus marketer theme. So creating these situations almost in these ads that people feel in their soul. Not necessarily that they have been slapped by a CEO, right? But theoretically or like feeling wise they might have been, like everyone has had hard conversation with their CEO or executive team. I think that's very normal, and I use this in the kind of the both layers. The second part is video ads, and video ads is something I didn't run for a long time because it's very resource heavy compared to images and so on. But I've also realized that video is great for building these retargeting audience pretty quickly, but it's also great for really getting people invested. So for video, I really again recommend creating these situations. Taking a situation that people have in their everyday life, in their workday, and then kind of implementing your point of view into that. And again, most importantly, making people feel something equally important when it comes to video. And I'm gonna share here, not the video, but this was kind of the first, good video that we launched, and it has been massive for us. So it's essentially again the CEO versus marketer theme. You can see the CEO in the end getting slapped in the end of the video. And this was actually made purely by AI from this agency called Artificial that helped us with this. And it has also been a huge driver for us in getting people invested in watching a 60-second video, right? It takes some investment to do. Um, and then message ads, kind of the final format I added. I didn't do it in the beginning as well, but I think message ads, which is essentially that you can sponsor messages that end up in your audience's inbox. So it looks kind of like something just in the inbox and then it says sponsored. I think it's a great way to combine with thought leader ads because as you see there, you see my head again, the same head you have been seeing in the feed and in thought leader ads. But you see it now again in your inbox and it feels very personal. So I think you need to tie it back to everything you've been talking about in these thought leader ads and make sure you continue that narrative. But in general, I'm very wary of actually pitching the product, but this is the place where I think you should pitch your product. So I've talked a lot about awareness in the past, right? Creating memorable things. But here, I think this is the place to actually pitch what you do, why they should care, and next steps. And for me, that is obviously, your LinkedIn and Google ads connected to CRM, go here. Very clear. I don't think it has to be harder than this. And I think message ads are also very underutilized. Um, and when we come to the final part of this before kind of the Q&A, we have metrics, of course, and this could be its own entire presentation. But again, for metrics, I like to keep it extremely simple. I believe in two things. We need to reach more buyers. We need to reach as many buyers as we can afford. We need to engage with these buyers a lot. And if we do that, it will correlate very well with pipeline and revenue growth as well. So I obsess about engagement. And leading indicators then for that, it's a bit different based on these different formats that I talked about before, right, that I'm running. So for image ads, these regular company ads, I look at CTR, so click-through rate. I just think it's an easy proxy to use, and we have so good benchmarks on it. I think the average on LinkedIn for an image ad is somewhere around 0.4% or something like that. And I want to be above 1%. Then I feel like it's a really good image ad. So if I'm far below that, I will definitely stop running those ads and come up with new ones. So I think engagement is key there. And for thought leader ads, when it's an image one, I talked about this before. When we've added this CTA at the end of this thought leader ads, we can measure something we call landing page clicks, and that is people that clicks this little link that we added. And I want to see this being above 10% of all clicks, because all clicks for a thought leader ads is also just clicking see more and seeing the actual ad. But 10% of all clicks should be people actually going to the site. That tells me that this ad has piqued some sort of interest. For video, instead, I'm looking at completion rate, as I talked about before. I want them to be invested and watch the whole video, and above 5% is fairly good. But I don't have an executive team to convince anymore, right? I did 10 years as a B2B marketeer, and now I don't have anyone over me yelling or asking about results. So I don't necessarily care about doing that, because I believe so strongly in that engagement and reach will lead to results. But for most of us, you need to somehow prove what you're doing. So I believe in having many different lagging indicators that you can kind of look at trends. Direct sign up is of course one. It's very tricky from LinkedIn to drive, direct demos. People do it through gift cards and, lead gen campaigns and so on. But if you're only measuring that, LinkedIn is going to look like a terrible channel. I think how did you hear about those fields are also great. So these fields in the forms on the website where you ask that question to people filling out the form. And you will also often realize that many are coming from social channels, even though the CRM says something else. Influence pipeline and revenue, of course, is something we do at Fibbler. So being able to see like, okay, they ended up in the pipeline. We can see that they had touch points from LinkedIn or another channel before. It has probably influenced that journey somehow. Customer journeys, similar thing, being able to look at what happened month over month for these kind of companies ending up in the pipeline. And then finally, one I also think are very underutilized is kind of looking at branded search and kind of share of search even. I use a tool called Storybook for this, where I kind of compare Fibbler's branded search towards our kind of closest competitors, just to see how big our share of search is and how it's trending over time. And like doing this framework that we have been doing, our share of search have completely exploded. And imagine we're going up against VC-backed companies, right? So it's very different. We're not competing with money here, but we are competing with, that's why I'm so fond of creating these memorable brands, because you can really compete with anyone regardless of the money. And I believe that's why we've grown as fast as we have done. So for measurement, I would say like, we're an attribution tool, but it is very complex and it depends so much on the kind of company you are at and what kind of trust you have built up. But you need to start with reach, engagement. If you are succeeding with those things, I can guarantee that you will succeed with bottom funnel results also. When I audit accounts, there's almost always something in the engagement or reach that is not aligning. which is then ending up with poor results bottom funnel as well. So I think start here, and then obviously looking at result bottom funnel, it becomes more and more important as you go along. Yeah, and that is actually all from me.
Awesome,
Great.
Adam. Thank you so much. That was super fantastic. You walking us through all of those different ad types and formats and also going through the metrics, lagging indicators, super helpful. We did have a few questions come in from the audience, so we're gonna
Hey, Glenn.
spend the
Yep.
next 10 minutes on those. It look
Glenn, Glenn, can you hear me?
yes.
Hey, Glenn, I'm Sham. By the way, can I hijack you for 5 minutes or 2 minutes?
Sure, sure. Go ahead, Shan.
Yeah. Hey, Adam, I'm Sham. I'm the founder of Triple Dart. Thanks for doing this session with us. Uh, right. So, basically, I just wanted to have few questions on behalf of all the audiences here. Would you be okay to do a quick rapid fire, like 5, 6 questions directly?
Shoot.
All right. So yeah, this is quite insightful. So I have few direct questions that you have not covered in the deck basically. So one is, what type of exclusions you add to your campaigns basically? What's your
Yeah.
best practices when it comes to exclusion?
I always exclude competitors. I always exclude customers. I always exclude signups. And that's about it. I don't, and
Right.
then over time, I add more exclusions when it comes to like because when you use LinkedIn's native targeting, there will always end up these weird companies that you don't want to target. So I will add more exclusions over time. Like, oh, this is clearly a company I don't want to reach. But in the beginning, customers, signups, and competitors.
Got it. And so there are a lot of people joining this call, right? We'll also share this later to the larger audience. Uh, the most frequently asked question is, for an early stage company, what do you think is an ideal start budget for LinkedIn? So when you started Fibbler, what's the first budget you started with?
I think you can start with any budget, honestly. I started with $1,000 a month with Fiddler, and
Got
then
it.
we increased it
Got it.
over time. I don't think there is I think of course, like if you start with more money, you will see results faster. So I think if you start with less money, you need to be more patient. But I think there is no minimum start budget.
Got it. So from a list targeting standpoint, right? Like what percentage of your campaign runs on list and what percentage of your campaigns runs on like native targeting?
For us, everything is
Yeah.
native targeting right now because Fibbler we sell so broadly. We can essentially sell to any company that run LinkedIn ads or run LinkedIn or any like platform. So I only run LinkedIn's native targeting. But if you have a more clearly defined ICP, I definitely recommend running a third-party matched audience. Yeah.
Got it. And what percentage of your budget is prospecting and what percentage of your budget is retargeting right now?
About 30% retargeting, about 70% brand awareness and kind of top funnel.
Got it. From an inventory standpoint, you said thought leadership ads are, it used to work really well for you. I can also see other image ads, sponsored ads, and few others from Fibbler. So what's the distribution across thought leadership versus image versus, like a conversation based ads?
Yeah, I would say at all times, always run about three creatives in every single campaign. So I always have, three thought leader ads or four running in cold. I have that in retargeting whenever something drops below the performance I talked about before, the metrics, then I replace them with new ones and so on. So some of my creatives, image ads and so on, as an example, I've been running them for a year or something like that because they have never dropped in performance. So I see no point in changing them.
Got it. So last question, I think last two. You mix up all tier one countries into one campaign, or how your campaign structure look like? Is it like US? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I split it up. I have US in one, I have EMEA in one, essentially. That's the two I'm running currently. And then so all of the formats I showed with like the cold and retargeting, I have one cold US, one cold EMEA, one retargeting US, one retargeting EMEA.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Understood. So if you can high level tell us what's your spend to pipeline ratio blended. I know it's very hard to track at a very high level just for the users, because that's I would say a gray area for most of us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, but it's a good question. I mean, the funny thing is that we're like LinkedIn ads is really almost the only channel that we are currently running, right? So it's a bit easier for us. We're also doing SEO, I would say, but it's more of a long term. So most of the increases we've seen in like we've gone from, having 10 signups per week to now having almost 200, I think. And I would attribute at least 50% of that to LinkedIn ads because that's the way we distribute. Like there are no other ways we distribute apart from my organic network, and that only has very limited reach. So like it's a big portion of our MRR that comes in that is touched by LinkedIn ads, and that is I would attribute probably 50% of everything that we get in and the MRR that we have currently to LinkedIn ads
But
for sure.
roughly with what percentage of spend?
And I mean, as I said, we spend around $10,000 today, maybe up to 15,000 dependent on, and our MRR is somewhere maybe $80,000 a month now. So yeah,
Cool. I think I'm done. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sham. So yeah, we're gonna jump into a couple of questions that have come into the chat. First one is from Mark, and it's about frequency, I guess ad frequency. So he asked, why not 2 to 3x more frequency? I feel that if they see you once every business day is still fine. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I honestly also believe that, at least in retargeting, getting frequency as high as possible. It's more a budget question to me, honestly, now. Like I could, but then I would have to take more budget from like cold and put it into retargeting, and I'm not willing to do that right now. But I definitely think it's yes, like frequency is good. Like people don't get no. I think that's the kind of opposite to that is that people get annoyed if they see you too much. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think people care that much. So I definitely think that that's a good thing if you can.
Cool. This one is from Lena. Hey, Adam, what format at retargeting layer shows the best results?
It's thought leader ads for sure. Thought leader ads when I'm running with like an image. Some of my best performing thought leader ads ever has been, when I can kind of combine something personal with something related to the product. So I did one where I was waking up at a hotel room in New York in the middle of the night because I was jet lagged, and I built a feature in Cloud Code for the product, right? So I was able to pitch that while also talking about me personally. So I think that's really brilliant in the retargeting layer.
Got it. Cool. This one's from Mark again. Curious, do you know the performance of traditional branded ads against thought leadership ads?
Yeah, like it's massive. I think it's I said around 10x the engagement, the CTR, right? But so I think there's somewhere along that. But it's like you can't even compare. That's why I urge so many to you have to do thought leader ads because the engagement is just so much higher. I think somewhere along at least 5 to 10x more engagement for sure. You will see.
Okay, cool. This one's from Shoni. Are the cold layer account lists contact lists? Do you do native targeting at all?
I do only native targeting actually, which is quite unusual often because I think it depends so much on who you sell to. I can sell very broadly because we like a low ACV kind of affordable product that most companies on LinkedIn can use. So we can run pretty broadly natively with more narrow title targeting. But I think many companies out there with kind of tighter ICPs should run company list for sure or contact list as you mentioned.
Okay, cool. You might have answered this one in your slide deck, but I'm just gonna ask it
Mm.
again. This one's from Shrusti. What are the KPIs for text ads?
No KPIs. I just want to have many impressions that are basically free. So I don't care about performance for them. It's just like a billboard. As long as they are free, I don't care.
That makes sense as long as they're free. Cool. This one's from Praveen. What are the third-party audience list providers that we can trust?
And that's a tricky one, right? There's many different data providers out there. One that a lot of people use, I know, is Primer, right? I can definitely recommend that I've been testing as well. Clay has an ads product that you can use as well. But it's like typically if you use company-based lists that you upload to LinkedIn, those are typically work very well. You will see like match rates of above 90%. So most of the companies you want to target, you will target. But what you will find with LinkedIn is also that even though you have selected a target list, it will end up other companies in there as well. So you have to kind of evaluate those lists or see the
Mm,
companies that you're reaching and exclude and so on. That never goes away, sadly. Yeah,
yeah, you got to be mindful of the exclusions. Cool.
exactly.
This one's from Lena. To reach this threshold of 100 plus likes, you probably need to post daily to always have your quote unquote winners to promote. What is your frequency of posting for thought leadership?
Yes, I post every weekday. As an example, so I post 5 times a week. I don't think you need to post 5 times a week to be able to run thought leader ads. I think especially if you're at the company and want to get someone in your executive team to post, I don't think it's reasonable to ask them to post 5 days a week. But if you can get people to post like once a week, then you might at least have like one ad that you can use a month, and that's something to start with. But I definitely do. I do it 5 times a week. Not all of them are appropriate for sponsoring because they might be more personal or about something else. But maybe 3 of the posts every week could be sponsored dependent on how they perform. And then 100 likes, it's just for me. I think everyone needs to find their own threshold, of course. Like it's more, I want to see that it's above average of my normal post, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. This one's from Visha. What AI tool did you use to create the video ads?
I have no clue. I worked with this agency that helped us. So yeah, they're a great team that just started actually previously. Now we were like the second one they got to test on, and I think they used a million different AI tools. But it turned out really well. I was really shocked with what you can do with AI and video today. I've just seen
Mm,
these in the past that have been terrible, but it's starting to become, yeah, really good.
yeah, cool. This one's from Margarita. Message ads for retargeting.
Yeah, that's what I run, and it's like I just feel like it's very rare that I pitch the product because I'm very wary of being pitchy. But I think that's a brilliant way of kind of nestling yourself into the inbox of people when they kind of already know you, and then you can actually pitch. Because it feels a bit more almost like automated outreach, right, on LinkedIn, but it's
Mm,
an ad. So yeah, I think it's a great tool for retargeting.
yeah, I guess that answers your second question, Margarita. People who engaged with the thought leader ads, you would do retargeting with message ads, right?
Exactly. I didn't really concretize that in the deck, but for the message ads in retargeting, I only target the people who have engaged with thought leader ads before. So they have seen my face and then they end up seeing my face again. Exactly. Great point.
100%. Cool. This one's from Lena. Do you believe that your distribution model of product-led self-service product is an important part of the success?
Good question. I believe that part of the success is that marketeers are very active on LinkedIn for sure. Like they will be on LinkedIn. I think if you have an audience that are less active on LinkedIn, it will of course be a bit trickier. I don't think necessarily the product led is needed. I think it helps to have some sort of free trial or way to see the product on the site because many people will end up on your site and they if you only have a gated kind of demo form before being able to see kind of prices and how the product look like, I think it will damage it for sure. But I think as long as you have it very open where people can understand what you do easily, I think it works just as well.
Cool. This one's from Ravijot. Does it make sense to test creatives upon Meta as they're cheaper to see what's resonating and then reusing them on LinkedIn. And then the follow-up question is, does it make sense to directly run bottom of funnel ads instead of first run tofu ads and later running tofu ads?
I mean, I think meta is very tricky. I think you could run meta retargeting, right? The only thing why I believe so strongly in LinkedIn is kind of when someone is on LinkedIn, I think they are in the right mindset of looking at kind of a B2B ad or getting exposed to B2B content, talking about something related to that, or that's me at least. And when I'm at like meta, I I'm not in that mode typically. So it's like, but I think it's a good point, right? I think we should always test. Like if we could get equal amount of results cheaper somewhere else, I mean, go for it. But I think generally what we know with Meta, right, is that targeting is extremely difficult in B2B.
Yeah.
Retargeting could work, but targeting new people and finding, these high stakes decision makers could be difficult.
Yeah, I agree. This one's from Amit. Does this help with attribution, such as tracking the number of influence deals, pipeline generated, and touch points? Attribution has been one of the biggest challenges, especially with LinkedIn ads.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the hard part about LinkedIn is that people have been treating it historically like Google Ads, similar channel, right? In Google Ads, it's very like someone will search for something, they will end up on your site, they will book a demo. Like it's very rare that someone sees an ad, clicks an ad on LinkedIn and books a demo. Like that just doesn't happen. And that's why I think you have to on LinkedIn take more of an awareness approach. You have to, educate and create attention for yourself and then measure it in a different way. And I think touch points did make sense. Like you can see that, okay, LinkedIn has been part of this, then they ended up coming into the pipeline somehow. But I mean, they heard about us from somewhere, right? So I definitely think if we only measure LinkedIn through kind of form fills that says in the CRM that they came from LinkedIn, it will always look terrible. Um,
Mhm. Got it. This one's a long question from Ashish. I have asked this question a long time back in the Q&A. I would like to understand the CPC and CPL for US healthcare target audience, which are account lists with about 4,000 to 7,000 audience focused on CXOs, VPs, and senior directors for each market like payers, providers, and medtech, etc. We focus direct lead gen due to budget limitations for paid ads, and I focus more of LinkedIn entirely for my campaigns. But I see much higher CPC and CPL and other platforms with programmatic ads. For content syndication ads on ABM platforms, it costs much lower. I see quality on LinkedIn, but quantity is comparatively much less. So, what to enhance? Ad formats to pick? I focus more of on document ads for thought leadership assets with quality gated packaging and image ads for lead gen based on requirements. Is it recommended to continue spending on LinkedIn for B2B with premium costs? Team is ready most of the time.
yeah, I mean,
Team is not ready most of the time. Sorry.
yeah, I think this is like the typical misunderstanding of LinkedIn, right? If you measure LinkedIn through the success of LinkedIn through the lens of CPC and CPL, it will always look terrible. Like that's just how it is. CPC, like take my CPC in the US for an image ad, it's going to be around, I don't know, 25 dollars or something like that. Expensive, but if we think about everyone that doesn't click, that only see the ad and remember it, we don't calculate that, right? So I think it's a measurement question again. If you only look at CPC and CPL as the success metrics, uh, then it doesn't make sense. I think you need to kind of look beyond that and look to like which companies are actually exposed to these ads that we're doing, and it will likely be more quality people on LinkedIn. And then the second part of this question is kind of if you're only targeting decision makers like VPs and so on at these specific healthcare companies, that also makes it extremely expensive. So I think you also need to target kind of champions at these companies and not entry level maybe, but senior people that can influence decisions and so on, make the audience bigger. I think making an audience this small is also very, very difficult on LinkedIn. I think ideally go as wide as you can with your budget, and then try to engage them as much as possible. Yeah, but I definitely think you continue to spend. It's more that I think you should go broader.
Okay. This one's from Margarita, and I guess it's also about the how expensive things are on LinkedIn. So what about the US market? I've seen our US ads 7 times more expensive than Europe. Any tips for the US?
Yeah, US is definitely, that's exactly what I'm seeing. Not 7x, but I'm seeing at least 2x versus my EMEA ads. And what I'm doing, like I mentioned manual bidding before, right? Where you actually set the bids yourself. I think that's extremely important. And I push it way further in the US than I do in EMEA, meaning I push the manual bids to maybe 1/3 of the recommended LinkedIn bid versus in EMEA maybe 2/3. So I try to push the costs down in the US as much as I can. Versus in EMEA, it's quite fine. So I definitely think US is more expensive, but if you want to get into the US market, you can optimize a little bit, but then you just have to eat it up, I guess.
Got it. This one's from Shrushti. Are you running awareness and retargeting campaigns in parallel, or wait to achieve a certain audience penetration for awareness ads and then launch retargeting ads?
Running them in parallel. So essentially, we have this co-layer. People that do something here or end up on our site, they will end up in this retargeting layer. So they always run in parallel. But the ones that end up in the retargeting layer, they are excluded from the awareness layer, essentially. So when they are here, they will only see kind of these things.
Cool. And this brings us to our last question from Ashray. Hey, Adam, what's the best way to move users from thought leadership ads to the sign up page? Should we include the link in the ad itself or put it in the comments or use some other approach?
I think the best way is to, like, when you have an organic post, before sponsoring it, not in the organic post because it will kill the organic post, but after a few days when you decided to sponsor it, you add, that's what I do at least, you add like towards at the end of the post, you add like a PS and then a pitch about the product and then like learn more here or sign up here and then you add your link. That's by far the best thing. And then you can, because that you can track later on in these landing page clicks. Yeah.
Awesome. That was super thorough. Thank you so much, Adam. That was an incredible session. You covered a ton of ground.
Thank
And I
you.
think, yeah, we went through everybody's questions. If there were, any unanswered questions, or people that would like to get in contact with you, what is the best place to continue the conversation with you, Adam?
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure. I try to post at least every weekday and I'm fairly active. So LinkedIn Adam Holmgren for sure is the best place.
Awesome. And just a reminder for everybody in the audience, we're going to be sending out the recording for today's session so you can review everything that we went over. And we all will also include links to Adam's LinkedIn and any other information that was talked about. But yeah, if anybody's here thinking about improving their LinkedIn ad strategy, building a stronger attribution model, trying to improve the impact of their paid campaigns, feel free to connect with Adam on LinkedIn, or you could also reach out to us at Triple Dart. We'd love to keep the conversation going on both ends. But for the most part, Adam, thank you again so much for joining us today and sharing your
Thank you.
experience with all of us. And yeah, we appreciate you a bunch for lending a super power hour here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye.
Awesome. Bye. And thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you are. We'll see you on the next code.